to talk about this story, we have to go back a little bit further, and we have to talk about the Florida State situation that's gone on in the ACC. For months now, Florida State has been at legal odds with the ACC. This suit was filed in a Tallahassee circuit court and alleged that the league breached its contract by failing to create an adequate value in their media rights deal and violating Florida's antitrust laws. So this lawsuit cited a $572 million penalty for FSU if it withdrew from the media rights deal that the ACC signed with ESPN early. So that's $572 million. And if you know anything about college athletics, or you know anything about, college football, there are large budgets and there's lots of money to go around, but not $572 million worth, right? And Florida State is claiming that this is unenforceable, that it doesn't make any sense. So now we fast forward a little bit. The ACC fires back, filing a countersuit, and the whole point of this countersuit is to try and get this court case heard in a North Carolina courtroom. That is what the ACC is trying to do by filing this countersuit, and kind of basically get it on their home turf, which is, by the way, where this grant of rights deal is stored, basically in some kind of like damn pyramid or something. You have to go in person to read this contract, folks. We don't, as normal folks, we don't even have any access to go and look at this media rights deal, right? So it's secretive just in that sense. So we fast forward a few more days. College football playoff and ESPN agreed to a $7.8 billion deal through the 31 and 32 season, worth, like I said, $7.8 billion. In that deal, the ACC schools would get a little over $13 million per school each year that they make the college football playoff, while the Big Ten and SEC schools would receive a $21 million slice. So you're talking $8 million roughly difference between the two, which is a big deal. No doubt about it, that's a big deal. Now, Clemson files their lawsuit. This is the whole thing that we're trying to talk about today. Clemson files their lawsuit against the ACC in attempt to break the league's grant of rights, just like FSU. Clemson is claiming the ACC's exit fee and control of their media rights after leaving the conference is unenforceable and prevents Clemson from doing its due diligence. So they're asking the judge basically to void the exit fee and allow Clemson to regain its media rights after exit from the ACC. So with all that being said, let's kind of take a break and unpack this. And let me get kind of your thoughts on this, Mason. So Clemson follows suit and files a suit with Florida State, basically mimicking Florida State's legal battle that they've taken on with the ACC. This is all to get out of the ACC and go join another conference. What is your thoughts on this? And my God, when is this stuff going to end? I mean, this is going on. It seems like for years straight now, we've been dealing with these talks and these discussions a ton of times, even just on the show that's not even that old. What is your thoughts on this? And is this the right move for Clemson? This is just interesting stuff to me.
I mean, I think it's the right move. I don't know anybody who's doubting that. You mentioned the numbers that the SEC and the Big Ten are going to be, the amount of money that they're going to be getting through the playoffs. As it stands right now, the ACC has a few legitimate contenders for the playoffs, right? I mean, as it stands right now, they're definitely getting someone in regardless, but there are a few big boys in the ACC who stand to benefit from the playoffs financially. And if they are going to benefit more in another conference, why not join that conference, right? If they have more of a chance to make the playoffs in another conference, why not join that conference? The challenge is going to come. And look, just last week we were talking about how it seemed like the college football playoff moving to a 14-team playoff was going to set in stone and in concrete the college football landscape as we know it. And here it is getting kind of turned up again, right? Where now you're looking at, because it's not, if Clemson or Florida State get out of their grant of rights, then all of the schools are able to get out of their grant of rights. So that would include Miami, that would include North Carolina, Virginia Tech. There are a lot of teams that are intriguing to both the Big Ten and the SEC that would then have an opportunity to move into one of those bigger conferences.
Yeah.
At that point, the Big 12 pretty much becomes irrelevant. The ACC, of course, will be irrelevant if those 6 schools that I just listed off were to leave. I would assume that the Big 12 would have kind of absolved those other schools and kind of become its own sort of conference. But then we're kind of getting back into this conversation of one mega conference, right? The Big Ten and the SEC would at that point kind of divvy up because we already know that they're working together as it sounds. So they would sort of divvy up what would make sense financially for both parties at that point. And then I think you would see a different national championship from there.
Well, and speaking of those teams that you just listed, the Virginias, the Virginia Techs, NC State, a lot of those teams, Miami, Clemson is not alone. We said whenever Florida State did this, we said that Florida State wasn't going to be alone in this action of trying to get out of the ACC. Lo and behold, here's Clemson. Guess what? There's going to be more coming. And the way I know this, all those schools have visited the whatever this lockdown facility they have the contract locked up in, this prison they've got it locked down in with a warden watching it. All those schools recently have visited there to check out this grant of rights deal. They don't even have a copy, Mason. And look, my whole point of kind of bringing this up today was this is inevitable. This is happening whether we all like it or not. This is the news. And this is how the cookie is crumbling. But there's more than one way to skin a cat. And I hope to not gross you out with that terminology, but that's an old saying. There's more than one way to skin a cat. And ESPN controls a dump lever on this thing, buddy. They can hit, flush the toilet on the ACC. They reserve the right over the next year. They've got until sometime in 2025, so somewhere within 360 to 465 days they've got to do this. They can say, we're done with this grant of rights deal. They reserve the right to do that because ESPN is the one who's contracted with ACC. So they can be done with this contract in 2027. Do you think that it would be beneficial for ESPN to pull the lever if Clemson and Florida State don't get what they want in court? Why would they not release them if they're under the thought process that Clemson and Florida State could end up in that SEC anyway? Mm-hmm. So this would give them time to say, all right, SEC, look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to pull the lever and the floor's going to fall out from under this conference. But you're going to be underneath and you're going to catch all the big brands. And then we're going to televise them. And we're going to give you a huge discount price on all these teams and give all those teams a discount on the way out the door and help your conference out right now, which in turn helps out us, who's contracted to televise all your games nationally.
Yeah.
It is a bit of a conflict of interest, one could argue, don't you think?
But if ESPN already has that grant of rights deal, I would think that the money that they make off of the ACC, given how little they pay them, is more than what they would gain from having even 4 teams enter the SEC, right? I think that they probably already have
but nobody watches ACC football like they do the SEC. I mean, right, look, but you can go out in the Seattle TV market, and SEC football did just as well last year as Pac-12 football did.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're neck and neck.
Right.
If you're adding, people don't give a shit about Pitt. I mean, and look, I'm not saying nobody in the world gives a shit about Pitt. Don't get me wrong. Pitt fans, if you're watching this, hey, enjoy. But Pitt's not a blue blood. Pitt is not a team that's going to win a national championship. It's not happening.
Yeah,
So
I'm
if
not
you mix
arguing that.
Clemson and Florida State in with other national champions in Miami, that increases the value while dumping. It's like that relegation that we talked about. It's
Yeah.
like ESPN gets to relegate the teams they don't want and then picks up the bad boys and puts them all together in the badass conference that's going to be in the Power 2 inevitably.
Yeah, I just think that those games are probably. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not arguing that those games wouldn't get more views than if they were played amongst ACC teams, right? But in total, you would have more teams and more markets covered if you had all of the ACC as it stands now than if you had four more teams in the SEC. And then if teams go to the Big Ten, well, Fox is getting all of that money now, and so you're splitting reps, you're splitting eyeballs, and then the Big 12 is going to get some too. And I think it's setting up that way regardless. I don't know if ESPN is going to be the ones who say, "All right, let's go ahead and get this done. Let's do it now." I don't know if they're going to be as willing to play ball as the Big Ten and the SEC are.
Yeah, we're gonna see. We've got a year to find out. Essentially, what can happen here. So let's see. They've got until each team would have to be out by August to be in a new conference in the following year. That's the ACC's rule. So you have to announce that you're leaving, just for example, in August of 2024 to be in another conference by 2025. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens in these court cases. That's really what it's going to come down to. And look, just to kind of my thoughts on I'm no attorney or anything, but here's my thoughts on these court cases. They want to Clemson and Florida State are who I'm saying they want to lower the amount of money it's going to cost them to leave these conferences. But in all reality, they voluntarily signed this in 2013 and then re-signed it in 2016. Yep. Okay? So and praised Jim Phillips, right? Absolutely praised Jim Phillips for doing what he needed to do for the conference. Yeah, they thought it was a great deal.
At one point. I don't remember if it was the 13 or the re-signing that was such a good deal, but one of these at the time was like the best deal in college football.
Well, but the problem was it was 20 years.
Right.
That was the issue. That is what bit them in the ass and is currently biting them in the ass, right?
Did not
Let's put a little quote on the screen here, and this is from Jim Phillips and the board of directors for the ACC. They say the ACC remains confident that its agreements with all its members will be affirmed by the courts. Clemson, along with all ACC members, voluntarily signed and re-signed the 2013 and 2016 Grant of Rights, which is binding through 2036. In addition, Clemson agreed to the process and procedures for withdrawal. The conference's legal counsel will vigorously enforce the agreements and bylaws in the best interest of the ACC's current and incoming members. Jim Phillips feels good about what they have on paper. And this is the same contract that Texas and Oklahoma were dealing with. It's essentially the same contract. And what did Texas and Oklahoma do when they were ready to leave the Big 12? They paid up. Mm-hmm. They paid what they agreed. They didn't flop about it. They didn't go yell and tell the chief of police, right? They didn't go lawyer up. This is. I just think it's kind of crazy, and I guess you can't blame Florida State and Clemson for trying to get out of this. Like you said, they want more money. This is everybody's scrounging for more money, as disgusting as it may be. But this is a simple case of the kid up the street has a nicer bike than we do, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get me one of those bikes. You know, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, I need what I need. we got to do something right now. And you know, it sucks.
In
honestly,
that scenario, also the kid on the bike is getting better and better every year, and you're stuck on the same bike, and he keeps getting upgrades, and he's beating you every year in races, and so it grows exponentially, right? Year over year, you need facility upgrades. You're probably going to have to start paying these players in the next couple of years. You need that revenue coming in to continue to keep up and keep pace.
Yeah. Absolutely. We'll see how those. I mean, we're obviously going to keep a really close eye on that situation with the ACC over the next, few weeks, months, and years, honestly, because this is something that is going to be ongoing. And it's one of those things that if you don't pay attention for a couple of weeks and you miss some news, it's hard to put all this puzzle together. And that's what we're going to do for you here at the First and Long College Football Show. So make sure that you are subscribed so that we can talk about it every week and keep our story straight on what's actually going on out there.